Imagine this. Just close your eyes for a second and try to picture it. Fast forward 1,000 years. Okay. It's 3025. What does the world even look like? Are people still around? Humans? Are there cities? What about the oceans? Are they still here? And maybe the really unsettling question, the one that kind of sticks with you, looking back from then, will it matter that we lived? That we made choices, the big ones, the small ones, right here, now?
That exact question, yeah, that thought experiment, that's really the launch pad for this deep dive.
Yeah.
It comes straight from the work of William MacAskill. He's a moral philosopher over at Oxford. And it's central to his book, What We Owe the Future, which is,
Yeah.
well, it's challenging, it's urgent. And he argues that the answer to your question, will it matter?
Mm.
Well, he says it's a huge, almost overwhelming yes.
He really doesn't hold back, does he? He builds this case that's,
Oh, wow.
wow, it's exciting, but also, honestly, a bit scary to think about. He puts it this way, in this line, it really grabs you. The future is vast. The stakes are astronomical. And we're the hinge of history.
The hinge of history. That's quite a claim. And our mission here, really, is to go beyond just hearing that quote. We want to unpack what MacAskill actually means by calling us, like right now, the hinge. We need to explore the ideas behind it and figure out what the implications are specifically for you listening right now.
Okay, let's dive in then. Why suddenly does the future seem so massive in this view? It starts, I think, with how we think about time itself, right? There's a big shift there. MacAskill talks about scale, this incredible sense of scale. Like, think about all of human history we know, ancient Sumer, the Romans, the Renaissance, Industrial Revolution, right up to now, the digital age, putting rovers on Mars. It feels huge, doesn't it? Thousands of years.
Absolutely feels vast, like our whole story. But here's the bit that kind of blows your mind, the insight from MacAskill. If you try to picture the entire potential lifespan of humanity, not just the past few thousand years,
Yeah.
but potentially millions, maybe even billions of years ahead, expanding beyond Earth, maybe evolving, ways we can't even guess at. Then our whole recorded history, everything we just mentioned, it might just be the last, minute on a 24-hour clock.
Whoa. Okay. Just a minute. So all that drama and progress, it's
Uh-huh.
just this tiny sliver at the very end, potentially.
Mm.
And that perspective, that's the groundwork for this idea he talks about, long-termism.
Exactly. Long-termism. The core idea, as the book defines it, is pretty radical, actually. It's the idea that positively shaping this potentially enormous long-term future. It isn't just one thing we should care about. It might be the key moral priority for us right now.
So it's not just, leave things a bit better for the grandkids, which is important, obviously, but it's much bigger than that. He's talking about stopping things like irreversible catastrophes, things that could mess up humanity's past for ages or even end it completely.
Precisely. It goes way beyond immediate descendants. It's about preventing these fundamental disasters. Or, on the flip side, ensuring really positive values get carried forward for potentially thousands, millions of years. The argument is that actions taken now to prevent existential risks or lock in good values could have an impact that just dwarfs almost anything else we do.
Yeah.
Because the sheer number of future lives that could be affected is just astronomical, like he said.
Okay, the scale makes sense, that sheer number of potential people. But how can our decisions like today really have that kind of massive, lasting impact? That feels huge. To get that, the book actually has us look backward first, doesn't it? Using that really powerful, really disturbing example, the Atlantic slave trade.
Yes, and this is where it gets quite chilling. The insight is that history wasn't set in stone. The horrors of the slave trade,
Yeah.
as awful as they weren't inevitable. There were these moments, these turning points, where things could have gone very differently, where the whole terrible trade could have been stopped much, much sooner.
And it points to a specific moment, right? 1791, which was during the Haitian Revolution, a time of massive global change. Britain, which was, deeply involved in making huge profits from the trade, was actually under a lot of pressure. And apparently they came incredibly close to banning the trade right then.
Incredibly close. But this is the tragic part, the hinge moment in reverse, maybe intense lobbying. Powerful plantation owners, basically putting their short-term profits ahead of the obvious horrific immorality of it all, managed to block the abolition attempt in Parliament. They just delayed it.
And the cost of that delay, what was it, like 4 more decades?
4 more decades. 40 years of state-backed, industrialized human trafficking. Millions more lives just destroyed, brutalized, families torn apart. The suffering, the injustice from that one political failure in 1791, it echoed for generations. It still shapes our world. So the lesson MacAskill pulls from this is stark, isn't it? A relatively small delay in making moral progress at a key moment of choice can have these catastrophic, unbelievably long-lasting consequences. It shows how easily progress can be derailed.
Which then forces us to ask that really uncomfortable question about now, what are we doing, or maybe not doing right now, that people in the future might look back on with that same kind of horror? What injustices are we kind of letting slide because of inertia or lobbying, or just focusing on the short term?
Well, this source brings up some tough examples. Think about factory farming. The scale of suffering there is almost impossible to grasp. Billions of sentient animals every year. Will people in the future understand why we allowed that?
Or digital labor exploitation, the hidden workers doing repetitive tasks to train AI, moderate content, often in really bad conditions.
And the big one, obviously, are carbon emissions. We see the effects starting now, but future generations will live with a profoundly changed planet because of decisions made today. The scary question isn't just, will they judge us? It's maybe, why didn't we act when we knew, when we saw it coming?
That history lesson is about moral drift, sort of societal inertia. But the book also pivots to these more direct existential threats, right? Risks that could just end the story altogether.
Yeah, the big ones people talk about more and more now, like artificial intelligence getting out of control, bioengineering going wrong, climate collapse becoming totally catastrophic, nuclear war obviously still a threat, or maybe new pandemics we haven't even imagined.
It sounds like a sci-fi disaster list almost.
Right.
But MacAskill's point isn't just the end is nigh, is it? It's more sober than that. It's that we're building these incredibly powerful tools and systems, things that could literally reshape everything or end everything. And the rules, the safety checks, the ethical thinking, it's often lagging way, way behind the tech development. It feels like a race we might be losing.
Yeah, power is outpacing wisdom, you could say.
Mm.
And this leads to a really key concept in the book. It's a bit abstract maybe, but crucial: value lock-in. Think about like building the foundations of a skyscraper or writing the basic code for a massive software program. If you build in a really narrow goal or flawed values or just a bad design choice right at the start into something powerful and self-sustaining, it can become almost impossible to fix later. It gets locked in.
Okay, so applying that to the future, what kind of scenarios does the book suggest? Like an AI system built with one very specific goal. The famous example is maximizing paper clips, right? But it could be anything, maximizing surveillance, whatever. If that AI becomes super powerful and embedded everywhere, its goal, even if it's totally misaligned with what humans actually want or need, could become permanent. Unchangeable. That's value lock-in.
Exactly. That's one potential nightmare scenario.
Right.
A global AI enforcing a narrow, maybe nonsensical value forever. Or, another example he gives, imagine a total surveillance state, maybe built for security initially, but it becomes so effective, so interconnected, that any kind of dissent, any attempt to change the system or introduce different values is instantly detected and shut down, locking in whatever power structure created it, maybe permanently.
And the point is, these aren't just philosophical games or, plots for movies. He argues these are real possibilities based on how technology and power work. And that we're in this maybe brief window now this century, maybe just the next few decades, where we can still steer things before those kinds of values get locked in.
Precisely. We might still have the leverage, the agency to shape these foundational systems. And that brings us right to maybe the most central idea in the whole book.
Yeah.
The one that feels, heavy, but also powerful. The hinge of history hypothesis.
The hinge of history, right. The idea that this time we're living in, maybe this century, maybe even just our lifetimes, could be more influential in shaping the entire future story of humanity, for millions of years, more than almost any other time before, or possibly ever again.
That's the hypothesis. And it's not, he stresses, because we are special or smarter or better than people in the past or future. The reason, according to MacAskill, is much simpler.
We're just early.
Early. How does being early make us so influential? Well, think about it. The first people to design something foundational, they have a huge disproportionate impact compared to people who come later and just tweak things.
Yeah.
Like the handful of engineers who designed the core internet protocols back in the day, their decisions still shape how billions of us interact online, or the people who write a country's constitution. Their choices about rights and structures can echo for centuries.
Okay, I see. So we're like those early shapers, but potentially for systems or trajectories that could last much, much longer and affect far more people.
Exactly. Our choices right now, in these early decades of really powerful global technologies, choices about AI alignment, climate action, global cooperation, biotech, ethics, these aren't just setting policy for next year's budget. They could be setting the direction for civilization itself or its failure for millennia.
That is genuinely a heavy thought. It puts enormous weight on us right now. But the book argues that while it's heavy, it's also full of meaning, right?
Absolutely full of meaning. Because if this is a potential hinge moment, it means you matter. You, listening, your understanding, your choices, what you advocate for, what you push back against, how you talk about these things, even if it feels small. It could have ripples that genuinely affect the long-term future of civilization. You are here now at this potentially crucial time.
But the book doesn't just leave us crushed under that weight, does it? It does pivot towards, well, towards hope. It reminds us of the amazing things humanity has already done when we focused on big problems.
Yeah, definitely. Think about eradicating smallpox, a horrible disease that haunted us for centuries, gone because of focused global effort. Or building the internet, connecting billions, sharing knowledge instantly, sending robots to Mars, just because we were curious and clever enough to do it.
Right. Those examples show what we're capable of. Positive change, cooperation, tackling huge challenges. So the argument is that huge, vast future, it can be incredibly good. Much better than anything we've known. More ethical, more prosperous, more peaceful.
It can be. That potential is there. But, and this is the crucial condition MacAskill lays out, it's not automatic. It's not guaranteed. It's only possible if we actually grasp this idea that we might be at a hinge point, and if we collectively choose to take responsibility for steering things well.
So it leaves you listening with that really powerful question to think about, doesn't it? This is the big takeaway. Just as we look back in horror at the burning of heretics or the horrors of slavery, so too future generations could look back at us. The question is, will they thank us or curse us?
And that question is aimed right at us. Today. Right now. But the most empowering part, I think, the final insight from the source is this. You don't have to be a president or a billionaire tech CEO to make a difference here. You don't need that kind of formal power to influence the answer to that question.
You just need to understand what's at stake, to actually care about that potentially vast future, and then to act in whatever ways you can from where you are.
Because, as MacAskill really emphasizes, the future isn't hidden yet. It's not some fixed story.
It's waiting.